Today, as promised, we're going to talk about seventh chords. Now, a seventh chord is, we take those three-note chords that we've talked about called triads, and then you add the seventh. We know that a triad consists of the first, third, and fifth scale degree of whatever chord you're building on, and then you include the seventh. Now, what separates a dominant seventh chord from a major seventh chord is a major seventh chord is a major triad with a major seventh added on. So if we were to look at a C major 7 chord, we have the C major triad, which is C, E natural, and G. And then if you continue in the scale up to the 7th scale degree, which is B natural, that B natural gets added on top of the G. What makes the difference in major minor 7th chords and the dominant 7th chord is that a dominant 7th chord is always a major triad with a minor 7th. And what makes the dominant chord interesting in this regard is that the tritone is the weakest and most unstable interval in all of music. But the dominant 7th chord, which is usually a dominant 5 chord, so if you were resolving to the one of whatever key your song is in, and it's dominant 5 to 1. That is the most commonly seen chord cadence, chord progression in all of music. The reason why it's so unique here is because it's so widely seen. It is easily the most frequently used and strongest chord cadence in all of music, and everything resolves with a purpose. It's like if you were looking at this from a traditional music theory standpoint, and I'm going to read to you how you would resolve this is in a traditional music theory sense, and it's called 4-part harmony writing. And I will read to you and explain it to you as best I can while going over what makes up the dominant 5 chord going to a 1 chord. The voice leading in the progression 5-7 to 1, most commonly seen chord progression in music, is determined by the need to resolve the dissonant intervals, the major 3rd and 7th. That's the tritone I was talking about. The 3rd and 7th of the 5-7 are tendency tones. When both tendency tones and the 5-7 resolve properly, the tritone formed by these tones is resolved. Note that the diminished 5th contracts to a 3rd, and the augmented 4th expands to a 6th. What this means is that if you were looking at it in a harmony part writing, and you had an E natural and a B flat, if we were talking a C dominant chord, or that E natural and B flat would either shrink down to a major 3rd, so that the E would resolve up to an F and the B flat would resolve down to an A in resolution to the F major 1 chord. And if it was an augmented 4th, which would be B flat, in the lower part as the lower note, and E natural as the higher note, it would expand to a 6th. It would still be the same notes that you would resolve to, but instead of the F being the lower note, you have the A as the lower note. It's a confusing trick in music theory, but that's the way that it is. That's how it is. And with music theory, if you're resolving from a 7th chord to a triad, one of those 3-note chords, you double the root, which is in the case of C dominant to F 5-7 to 1, you would have 2 Fs in the chord. So I hope I explained this clearly enough for you. What makes up a C dominant 7th chord is a C major triad, C, E natural, and G, and that B flat. The E and the B flat are tritones. So those need to be resolved in some way or another. And you're resolving that C dominant 7 chord to an F major 1 chord. Alright, so if you were looking at it from root to root, like root note to root note, and we're talking root position chords, the C, the root note of the 5 chord, would resolve down to the F, just following basic root motion pattern. Alright, the E natural, well, and this is all in 4-part harmony writing. The E natural, oh, it would be an easier, smoother transition in chordal resolution, and that's always what you want in resolving chord tones if you went from the E to the F, because the E is the major 7th of the F major scale, and the 7th of the scale is always resolved up to the root. So right there you got 2 root notes. You still have to resolve the G and the B flat to an A and a C. G to C, that's a no-brainer. That's another perfect 5th resolution down. Strongest cadence movement, strongest note movement out there. So that's where you would go, and the B flat would resolve down to an A. Hey, now, if you were looking at this in relation of building a chord on a guitar, you resolve it to whatever sounds best, whatever sounds natural. Well, popular music throws a lot of these conventions from traditional theory out the window, simply because it needs to sound good. That's the only reason why. So I hope I explained this dominant 7th chord effectively, and next week I'll expand on 7ths a little bit more, because it makes more sense for me, because this is a complicated subject, and it makes more sense to take this slowly and build on it.